Hey everyone, this is Benny Greb, and I was a guest at the NZ Drummer podcast. We talked about my book, we talked about failings and successes and all kinds of stuff. So check it out.
You're listening to the NZ Drummer Podcast, in-depth conversations with local and international drummers. My name's Andrew Rooney, full-time drummer and drum tutor based right here in Auckland, New Zealand. If you have a passion for drumming, welcome. You're in the right place. Practice and career tips, behind-the-scenes stories, and real-world advice from the best drummers on the planet. Let's do it. Hey guys, real quick before we get rolling, you will hear us talking about Benny's instructional material, and you will also hear a couple of selected tracks. The best way to purchase any of these goodies is to go to the official site, bennygreb.de, link in the description. From there, simply click on shop. Remember, if you enjoy this episode, if you get something valuable out of it, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. You can also join the Facebook group and follow on Instagram. If you would like to help keep the lights and mics on, you can hit the Patreon link. All other inquiries, please email nzdrummerpodcast@gmail.com. That is more than enough from me. Let's listen to Benny. Mr. Benny Greb, welcome to the NZ Drummer Podcast.
Big pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm a huge fan, and it's just a total honor to have you on as a guest.
Oh, thank you.
Can I just say, just to start with, as a drum teacher, I'm really grateful for your educational material. The language of drumming, and particularly the way you systemized things with the rhythmic alphabet, that was a complete game changer for me as a teacher and for all my students.
Yeah, that would, for me too.
If I go back to uni, I studied at music school.
Yeah.
And we used a lot of new breed, syncopation, belson, all those materials. And then obviously what I would do as a teacher, I would try and pass those on to my students.
Sure.
It was just very difficult to bridge the gap between teaching basic fundamental grooves, notated, and then interpreting rhythms and trying to put systems over melodies and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can you take us back and talk about how you formulated this very simple but genius system?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. You're very generous. Well, I had the same thing basically. I stumbled when I was studying music, and even before that, from one subject and one book to the next. And while they all are great, and even historically, of course, like New Breed or like stick control, or like, these are like iconic methods for drumming, but and some of them are pretty clearly structured. Some of them aren't. Some of them are maybe structured, but they don't tell you about it. It's kind of like maybe you get lucky and by accident you find yourself like really, doing all the corners and doing it systematically, and then realizing, oh, you don't have that many gaps in your repertoire or your knowledge. And some don't. But for me, the mind-blowing thing was that I realized after thinking, oh, independence and coordination is a thing that I have to do, right? And then like snare technique, of course, is a thing that I have to do, and stickings. And I mean, even within snare technique, sticking stuff, then rudiments, all the rudiments, then maybe independence kind of thingies just between the hands, to realize, oh, okay, these are all like different schools of thought, or like different systems and different approaches. And then to find out that they basically can all be tackled with one kind of DNA, one formula, kind of one alphabet. that doesn't have that many puzzle pieces. Actually, it's pretty straightforward. You don't even have to read notation for it, which a lot of younger kids I think really like. It really puts the system kind of in the foreground that you then can put all kinds of variations on. So if you use it for rudiments, it can be a diddle that you place on every note. If you want a flam, you can do that. Or if you want it coordination wise, you take like one certain instrument of the drum set where it plays through the alphabet that way, and that's then basically pretty much all you can do and all kind of you need. I think clarity is power. Most people today have a lot of, no one has a shortage of material or ideas what to practice, or people telling them a new exercise or something to get busy with.
A new Instagram chop.
Yeah, I mean that was fun for a while and very needed for a while actually, because back in the day, material was very scarce, and it was great to have just more material out, but after a while, I think people are now like, okay, oh gosh, I don't know where to start. I don't know how it all fits together. Like, is that somehow related? Then in the internet world, some people like make up different names for the same thing, which makes it even more complicated. So orientation gets kind of lost. And what the language of drumming did for me, first of all, and I had to do it, and then later, thankfully for many others, is to offer elegant organization of kind of that stuff. And I think if you have elegant organization and clarity and overview in your mind, it also gives kind of capacities free, a little bit like psychological headroom to then focus on what you really want to focus on, but which is using it, applying it, selecting what fits for you, instead of being like, what? So that was kind of the thing. Like all of my education stuff is usually, of course, born out of problems that I faced myself or faced with students, and then find solutions for. And this was a very important one for me, and still is. Some people sometimes tell me like, "Whoa, I'm an advanced drummer. I'm working on it." And some people tell me like, "Oh, it's great for young students to do it." And someone says like, "Oh, I'm a cellist and I love to do this with my students." You know, it's like,
Oh, wow.
And sometimes when colleagues are like, "Wow, I've been into this. I thought I played since 30 years, but it's still." I'm like, I'm still practicing that stuff. Like I go back to it, and I mean, back to it would mean that I left it. I never left it really. It's like I just it's a constant source of. It's like a North Star of like, okay, let me dial myself back in. Let me see whether everything is still tidied up.
Absolutely.
And everything is still there. Because also stuff that you practice sometimes can go away a little bit over time as well.
Yeah. Like stopping going to the gym.
Oh, yeah. But why is that? Because the body is smart and nice and says like, you know what, let's be very efficient. Whatever you don't need for a while, we just think that has lost importance for you. So memory, back muscles, like whatever it is, if you don't use it for a while, the body's like, oh, I think you don't need that anymore. Let's get rid of it. Let's save all the energy for the stuff that's most important to you. And what is it now? Netflix. So you want to direct, of course, and tell your body what your priorities are through time put in and through focus. Yeah, that's a big one as well. Yeah, but just to close this off, it was a solution for a problem that I faced, and I'm very happy and feel very fortunate that it's now. Yeah, I see it everywhere and get a lot of nice feedback on it, and it's just beautiful.
We're wrapping up something huge very quickly.
That's fine.
I mean, that system with my students, I think the game changer for a lot of them is they can see that there is a start and an end to that page with the groups of 4 and the groups of 3. So it's not so daunting. The way I normally start with that is toms and fills.
Mm-hmm.
So each dot equals a tom, and a space is a snare drum.
Right.
And right, left. And if the dot is on a right, it's your floor tom.
Right.
If the dot is on a left, it's your high tom.
Yeah.
And we go through that, and they get it instantly.
And it sounds like something immediately, right? Like it's
absolutely.
It's not nothing.
You can see their face; they just brighten up. Wow, I just did a really cool sounding drum fill.
Right.
And then you can start plugging that into a system. You know, let's play hands, and we're gonna read the melody on the feet.
Yeah.
So it's a great entry drug, I think.
Oh yeah. And what many people tell me and give me feedback is it's great for like first of all, for teaching it's so important. No one has fun and is motivated in a game when they don't know the score, when they don't see the scoreboard. Like if you don't know where the goal is and which side you're actually playing on and when it's over and how much time you have and you have to know whether it's a sprint or a marathon. You will approach it differently and that's very healthy and very important. And that is just one example what clarity can provide to be like,
Yes.
I know we're starting here. Okay, we only do that line or this, and this is this, and then boom. And also the clarity of, you know what, with this system, it's actually possible to say, whatever happens in 16th, done. Like
Yeah.
to really say like my right hand, like independence with like 16th, done. Now like left hand, and really have a couple of subjects where you say like, this is done. This is like ticked off. I never had that before. It was always like, okay, I did a little bit from that book, and then I played a jam session. I thought like, oh, ugh, that there are big gaping holes in there that I didn't know existed, and that makes you insecure. That makes you then play safe. That makes you then be bored out of your mind, and it's just yeah. And it's great to start without notation and have a very very clear way and let, like you said, like instrumentation and orchestration kind of do itself. And then it's actually easier to jump to notation if you want to be like, look,
Yes.
this is not a big deal. This is basically this. It's just a different way to write it out. And it's like, so it's also a great gateway drug for that if you want that as a teacher.
Absolutely. 6 years later, Benny, you released an equally spectacular resource, The Art and Science of Groove.
Thank you.
The biggest 5-star recommend I can give that is that my wife watched it with me and she loved it. She laughed the whole way through it because
your wife has great taste, apparently.
Because your material is always interesting and very informative and incredibly well thought out. But importantly, it's humorous and it has fantastic production value, man.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thanks. I really drove myself crazy with that one. It's I really tried to, because the first one was pretty, I think what some people would call unusually high production value, at least for the drum scene or for the education thing. But I tried to push it with the second one, even like to be like, you know what, I will not step back from, or there has to be something. And also because the subject is seen by many like either in a very so the Art and Science of Groove, for those who maybe don't know, is really about like timing exercise, not slowing down, not speeding up, how to get this feeling that we call groove, how to get that, and what is that, and where does it come from, and really, but very specific exercises how to work on them, because very often it's really viewed either very esoterically or very talent based, of like, either you have it or you don't, or you have to be born in the right country or whatever it is. And so I wanted it to be very specific and
actionable.
Very actionable, to be like, do this, try this out, and you know what, you don't have to believe me, but make a recording before, try this exercise out, and then listen to it afterwards, and something will have changed. So even if you think like, oh, it's a big gift and stuff, okay, then the rest of us mortals at least have something we can improve on still. And then while it's, because it's such an important subject for drums and music in general, I think, but it sometimes goes pretty deep as well, I wanted to make it as entertaining and as silly at the same time as possible without losing the other stuff.
I think the balance was just perfect. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I actually watched that on a holiday with my wife, and we put it on like a movie.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what to expect, and within like 2 minutes, I had run away and grabbed a notebook, and I was taking a copious amount of notes.
Great.
And my wife was just sitting there laughing her head off.
Great. That's awesome. Oh, you're very generous. That's almost too much niceness for a German guy to handle, I have to say.
Making you blush over there.
Yes, it makes the ice around my heart melt.
Those two resources alone, the Art and Science of Groove and the language of drumming. Absolutely essential for any drummer, in my opinion.
Thank you. I, of course, agree, but I'm biased. So,
Are there any more educational things on the horizon?
yes.
Yeah.
I hope to finish this summer, finally, a book that I've been working on since, I mean, I've been gathering and researching for it probably over 2 decades now, but
Wow.
really actively writing on it, putting stuff together and try to put it into words and into a system again that is also beneficial and hopefully doesn't waste anyone's time as well. It will be called, no, I can't say the name yet, but it's
Almost
basically around,
gotcha.
gotcha journalism as again. Um, it's about effective practicing for musicians, and there is actually a lot that has been found out in the last kind of decade. In the 70s and 80s, we didn't really know how the brain really works, and we had, of course, a lot of tryout stuff. But it's very interesting, like that you can speak a programming language that just works for this thing we call brain and mind, or this whatever capacity we have in terms of focus and patience or lack thereof or whatever. And there's also certain ways that are traditionally used and recommended that absolutely are guaranteed to not work. And it's just a funny thing. Like it's like when you try to put a nail in the wall with a screwdriver, and it's just about like finding the right tools, a little bit about understanding also why it works and why it doesn't in other ways. But mainly, again, it's about very specific principles and strategies and tools and tricks. Just, I mean, whatever works, right? I'm not too. There is a little bit of the explanation and the look behind why it works, but there's a lot of just like simple tricks. Just do it and see if it works, and
just trust me.
Yeah. Well, don't trust. No, I never am. This is a good point. I'm never am a trust me guy. I'm always at least take it and try it out. You don't have to trust me, but if you try it out, then you will know. And then you get something that's very valued in society usually, which is experience, because you did it yourself and you made an experience with it, and you experienced and you have proof that it works. This is usually what I would wish for everyone to do. And everything that will be in this book is stuff that does work. Yeah, I can't wait to get that finished. I'm really now in the last kind of steps, and this whole coronavirus thing that we're in right now, it has taken the last excuse for me to not get this book finished. You know, it's like it would be really embarrassing if I tour like crazy again and I'm like, oh well, I still didn't get it finished. I had a lot of time.
Shoulda, woulda.
Yeah. So I really my deadline for the final draft now is middle of June, and then maybe the editing and the artwork and everything, and then let's see. Hopefully, early next year, maybe we can talk again about it when it's out. So,
yeah, deal.
Great.
Hey Benny, if we could shift gears a little bit, can you give us a game-changing moment, something that changed things for you in your career?
Yeah. First, I have to say, for completion's sake, that from the outside, game-changing moments are usually perceived as like these huge steps, these huge leaps. And it's never really that way, because no one sees the preparation that is actually a very smooth kind of little step-by-step. But then the outside world sees all of a sudden like, oh, he played with the Buddy Rich Big Band, or oh, he did this or that, and oh, the DVD came out or something. But I've been teaching that stuff like for 5 years or 10 years before that.
Yeah.
But sure, I mean, in terms of like drumming, a game-changing moment for me was to move to Hamburg very early on, to really become like in the natural habitat of a musician, like out of the world of the, you called it uni before, like the studying and everything.
Yeah.
But really being like, okay, hey, you play way too loud, for the clubs, and to just do this experience, or to get called for my first studio jobs back then when there still were any. So that was a huge thing. the Montreal Drum Festival was a big thing in 2005. That was kind of the first time where I uploaded a video online on my website, and then someone stole it and uploaded it on this very new website I never heard about, which was called YouTube.
What?
And yeah, exactly. And back then it was like, what? What is that? What is there going on? And then I was invited to a tour in Canada, and I've never been in Canada before back then, and the tour was sold out. And I was like, oh, this internet thing. That-
Wow, yeah.
that's a thing, I think. So that was a game changer to understand that. Then to be the first German guy or the youngest blah that was ever invited to do a DVD with Hudson Music. Back then that was kind of with DCI, and I grew up with these things. The Modern Drummer Festival was a thing when it still existed.
Did you ever sort of stop at those points and just think, "Oh my God, I'm doing this. I'm living the dream now."
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. I really practice gratefulness very very consciously. I mean, has time passed sometimes and events come very quickly? So I sometimes only did that maybe after a year or two. Yes, but I still am very grateful and don't take that for granted. And I mean, most of the things that happened were really things that I idolized before, and idols of mine did. And I was always a huge Steve Smith or Dave Weckl fan, and and to now meet them and they say like, "Hey Benny, what's up?" And it's just the weirdest thing for me, because I mean, I definitely don't put myself in that category, of course, but it's to just be on a level where, or in the same world at least, or at the same drum
Yeah.
festivals and stuff. It's a huge deal for the teenage self of mine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Steve Smith and Dave Weckl were two of your big idols coming up.
Oh yeah, I mean Steve Gadd definitely, but I mean all the guys. I mean the '80s were pretty, and the early '90s were pretty interesting because a lot of these drummers had idols that were jazz drummers and grew up with jazz education mainly, but then took it to a very different level,
Yeah.
and that was sometimes featured in popular music then. And the whole fusion stuff was, which is now really coming back, right? With, I mean, with Snarky Puppy or Dirty Loops or like bands like that, that would have been considered back then like fusion,
Yeah.
it's and that was exciting to me. I mean, I always loved jazz, and I practiced it a lot and played in big band and stuff. But I mean, what Winnie Colaiuta did, even on pop albums in the '90s, or yeah, even earlier, of course, was just like absolutely mind blowing, and it was a very
Yeah.
interesting time. And all of a sudden, and that was new as well, was that there was all of a sudden access to, because Vinny Colaiuta would have killed probably to have a DVD of Tony Williams, right? Back when he was
Oh yeah.
young. And I mean, we all would still kill for that probably, but it was just not available like from a Tony Williams kind of character, right? And now it seems like almost normal that happens, but I remember the first time that where I was like, wait, I can't play that 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover groove, but the guy did a VHS tape where he explains it slowed down. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
greatest thing in the world. Like I couldn't believe it. It's like, what? And this Dave Weckl guy as well. He actually, what? He brings out songs without the drums so I can play on it. I mean, this is
Oh yeah.
insane. So, oh man.
It's like the magician showing you how to do the tricks, right?
Oh, it's insane. I mean, I never thought that was possible, because I played, of course, 2 songs in the radio and blah, blah, but it's a different feel than playing to a playback, like, of course, but funk was a huge influence. I always have to mention Mike Clark, which I think is absolutely amazing. Of course, David Garibaldi, but I mean, even more old school, the James Brown
Yeah.
stuff, it's just good stuff. And I have to say a short tribute to Florian Schneider, who just passed away from the band Kraftwerk.
Right.
Passed away yesterday, I think, and that was also a huge influence on myself, like the whole electronic music and how that kind of came to pass. So yeah, a lot of drummers. Of course, we could
Absolutely.
film the next hour with drum influences.
Oh yeah. Benny, Can you tell us about a time that you failed and what you learned from it?
Oh, we don't have enough time for that either.
By the way, any of these questions you can skip
No, no,
or
no,
we
no,
can
no.
come back
Oh,
to. It's totally
no,
fine.
that's all fine. Thank you. Um, yeah, I mean, there is so much fail repertoire in my head now. Do you want to specify it a little bit in which area or?
How about gig? How about a gig fail where you kind of wanted to burn the sticks after a gig kind of scenario?
Yeah. Um, I mean, when I came to Hamburg early on, I financed myself with just the worst gigs. But for me, it was a win when they were gigs. Some of my colleagues sometimes had the approach of like, I only do the music I love, and if not, I will work at McDonald's or something, and then
Right.
select a couple of. And I was always that kind of guy. I had a very clear vision what I wanted to do, and wanted to go towards that. But for me, it was already success if I can finance myself through banging on things. That
Yeah.
that was great, and that kind of was the thing of because my grandma back then even was like, when do you come back to Bavaria and start this stop this crazy idea of yours of like, and I'm like, no, it's gonna be fine, you will see, and and so that was the thing, and included in that was of course horrible like scenarios of like gigs where you of course a little part of a huge promotion thingy of a big company that just like wants to reveal a new product, and you have this snare drum around, and at a certain cue you have to walk on stage with a stupid playback song and twirl the sticks, and it's just where you sometimes sit in the van and think like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? It's just horrible. Yeah. I mean, stuff that was breaking down, of course. So many things. The most recent one is a health thing, actually, where I realized like, oh, I have to take better care of myself. Like 2 years ago,
Right.
it was just this thing of, I once prided myself always saying like I never canceled a gig in my life. Like I never bailed out. I never didn't keep my word. That was very macho-ish important to me and still is. But so I played in whatever state I was in. I remember a horrible gig because I didn't want to let anyone down. Everyone got the flu and like very, very sick. And I actually had a bucket next to the drums where I then sometimes while playing was kind of bending over and yeah, relieving
Show goes
myself
on.
orally. Yeah, horrible. So is that what you wanted to hear?
That's juicy enough. That's good.
We're now right at the vomiting stories.
Can you give us a podcast or book recommendation?
Oh yeah, lots. I love
Great.
books. I try to at least read a book a month. I think it's one of the absolute superpowers that we have available. If I could instill like one habit in anyone, it would be the habit of constant learning to become better at becoming better, so to speak. And there is just so much genius stuff out there that I think the main mindset for me is that problems usually have a feeling of loneliness attached to them. When you struggle with anything, if you have it in relationships, if you have it like health wise, if you have it job wise, if you have it financially, it doesn't matter. When you struggle with something, there's usually like a little bit like a little dose of shame and loneliness. And if you can overcome those, admit that you think this is less than at the level you want it to be. This takes courage to first of all say like, you know what? It's just not good enough. I just don't know how to do it better. But I don't have to, because there might be someone else, and there always is, who has figured out that thing and actually made it his thing, his main thing for 50 years. He's the global expert on it. He found the best ways to deal with paperwork as a self-employed musician, or to clean up your room the fastest way, or to cook a fast dinner, or to like whatever it is, right?
It's all out there.
It's all out there, especially nowadays. There are no excuses for not getting the information. You can search it so easily. Whatever it is for you, I would recommend anyone who listens to do it, to just try it out, like how to, and then fill in the blank, whatever you are interested in. And then that's it. And just for myself, I have the rule, like if I really struggle with something, I buy 3 books on the topic. I read them and then pull kind of a Frankenstein monster of things. And sometimes you realize, oh, these are basically the same tips and same strategies. Then you know they're good. Or you really have an approach where you think like, meh, and then you have another approach that's, yeah, I think that's it. And oh man, it's super.
Yeah.
One that always blows my mind and still does is David Allen. He wrote a book called Getting Things Done, which sounds like productivity, but under the hood is actually about stress-free productivity and how to have a clear mind, how to not only slow down, but actually quiet your mind, because you get everything out of your mind. He always says, like, your head is for having thoughts, not keeping them.
Wow,
and
nice.
I have lists everywhere. I have like this chart here where I wrote something down just
I'm the
before we
same.
talked, and it's just great because like what the brain is horrible at is to remembering things. Like the brain is great at planning and coming up with ideas and solutions and strategies and pattern recognition to get connections to like, oh, this belongs to this and that. But then we go to the store to buy lemons, and then we come back with anything and no lemons, and because that's not what we're good at. We're not good at remembering things, and lists are way better at that. And
Oh yeah,
this is a very kind of bastardized, low light version now. It's a wonderful system, the Getting Things Done system. Many people call it GTD. That changed my life. That is absolutely amazing. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is an absolute classic. It's a little bit more romantic and esoteric as David Allen's thing. Stephen R. Covey, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. Yeah. And just start there.
I'm surprised it might have just occurred to me that link between the lists, even just for going shopping, and goal setting. Because in my opinion, there's something very profound and powerful about writing down your goals.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to just one day going, I would like to be on the cover of Modern Drummer. And then going about your day. That's a lot different to writing that down, revisiting that, looking at it each day, and actually taking actionable steps towards that.
Absolutely. It's a power that everyone has, but either you use it to your advantage or you don't. And there is actually a magical thing that happens when you write stuff down. There's another mantra, which is always think on paper. So if you have something you struggle with or something, I never make decisions without a piece of paper and a pen. It's like, oh, should I go this? Should I play this gig? And say, oh, but I have this other thing. Because your mind is so good at like playing this ping pong game and just going back and forth without like progressing really. And if you kind of grab it like out of the air and you put it on paper, a couple of things happen. And some people say like, I do it with the iPhone and blah. But but I think Benjamin Franklin said like, what is easy to do is also easy not to do. And and this applies to this stuff absolutely, which is because it's so simple, people think it's not a big deal, it's not a big tool, but it's huge. It's unbelievable. Because what it does is when you write something down, you materialize thoughts. You put them in reality, you put them observable, you create distance between your thoughts and yourself. So you now have something there that you can decide upon, move it around, look at it, instead of it being you, which is more difficult to just deal with. And then if you have opposing things that maybe are contradictory, you don't experience them at the same time, but you can look at them one at a time. And then stuff happens. Then like this crust kind of maybe begins to move, or you see a priority of like, yeah, but this is more important, isn't it? And it's magical. And that's why writing stuff down like forces you in a good way, in a gentle way, to slow your thoughts down, to organize your
Yes.
thoughts. Some people sometimes are like, yeah, but I can do it in my head. It's like, yeah, no. Like, it's like someone that finds it too complicated to learn to drive a stick shift car and says like, huh, look at that fool in his first driving lesson. I can walk way faster than this. Like, yeah, you can, like for today, but in half a year, this guy will drive to other countries while you can walk down the block.
Yeah.
So it's the tools that you use. Yeah, I mean, writing stuff down is magical. I can only recommend it.
I think you know what? I think we're coming up with a magical formula here. You mentioned before, you mentioned before gratitude. You're big on practicing gratitude and being
Yes.
very grateful for things. I'm exactly the same. I always note down something I'm grateful for each night before going to bed.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, and just out of curiosity, are you big on meditation?
I dabble in it. My girlfriend is way better. So I have a. She's way more consistent. She does it for longer. She went to retreats and everything, and she's inspiring in that way for me. I like it. I do it. It's more like a tool for me to be. I do a lot of breath work. I do this thing called the Wim Hof method, like since a couple of years. So I mix together a cocktail of routines that really serve me and put me in
Right.
a better place. Yeah. I mean, everyone knows these things of like when you don't have energy and you're in a bad mood, you will react to a thing your partner says or an opportunity that comes job wise or like, of course, very differently than if
Yeah.
you are like you have slept enough, you are in a good mood, you're like, right? And I think it's almost our responsibility, or let's put it differently, we have the opportunity to do things that put us a little bit in a better state, like on a daily basis. And then that is kind of the fundament that then makes things happen that other people then call luck. Oh, he's so lucky. It's like, well, he was prepared. He was maybe he was ready for it. He had the energy for it instead of, and I've had situations in my life where I honestly have to say, when certain jobs or calls came in, my underlying message basically was like, I can't handle this. I can't handle you. I can't handle this offer. I don't know what to do with it. I'm overwhelmed. And
Right.
to not have that, to feel like, oh, yeah, I have my other shit kind of worked out over here. And now and that's another thing that David Allen usually says is like, how appropriately engaged are you with the things around you? And this is a mindfulness thing, basically. So I hope I
Yeah.
didn't dodge the question too much. But
No, that's fantastic. I sort of conveniently, in my mind, sort of package this into what I would probably call the law of attraction in a way. That term can seem very airy-fairy and nonsense to a lot of people.
yeah,
But
and for some aspects of how some people see it is so I, for example, don't think that you can wish in the universe for a parking space. Like this is just something that really did
Right.
a lot of disservice for I think what it could mean. So I usually try to stay away from that. But of course, or let's call it the butterfly effect, or like
Yeah.
that definitely is a thing that definitely happens, of course, and we're all interconnected in a way, but you are definitely connected with people you communicate with your physical being and with your kids and everything, and we all know. I mean, relationships are like body temperature, where like if the relationship doesn't work, like it just, even things that are used to be fun before aren't all of a sudden not fun anymore, although they don't seem
Right.
connected to whatever mess is going on there. And and I think that's what it kind of is. The more kind of open wounds you have here or there, or the more construction work you have in your head and in areas of your life, the less energy you basically have for
Yeah.
other things. But sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. But
No,
law of
no.
attraction is kind of a, ooh, I have to, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't particularly like sort of even bringing that term up, but to me, it's just a more practical and actionable thing. For example, one of my morning affirmations is today is going to be a great day,
Mm,
and I'll go out on my morning walk and I'll say that to myself, and listen to something positive.
yeah.
It's really hard to have a bad day if you start your day that way.
Yeah. 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 No, I think, of course, when you expect certain things, or when the spotlight you put on things in your mind, like, really directs how you, and people can smell it. They can smell
Yeah.
it, whether you expect them to be assholes, and and
Yeah.
if you act that way, then you are an asshole, basically. So
Yeah. It's
it's
like
this,
when you're single and you're looking for a girlfriend.
yeah,
No one wants to go near
yeah. Yeah, because then you're just desperate, basically, and not relaxed. And yeah, sure,
you. Yeah. I love it. I think we've gone way off topic there, but
that's great. That's what it's really about. Let's
Oh,
not
it
talk
is.
about single and double strokes. That's what it's really about.
We've got all that down.
Yeah. And when you have that down, singles and double strokes are easy.
Benny, another big question for you.
Yeah.
Can you bust a drumming myth?
I will sound like a broken record, but I think that groove is a talent is a myth.
Amen.
I mean, groove is something that happens as a result of a combination of learnable skills.
Yeah.
And everything else is basically pretty, I mean, if you really think about it, pretty questionable, if even morally, when you then like, oh, you have to, or your parents have to, blah. Like, well, I think that has been disproven many times. And of course,
Yeah.
this stuff serves as an excuse for some to put them on a pedestal, to talk down on others while still feeling humble, this kind of like, yeah, man, it's a blessing, man. And it's like, oh man, geez. And if you think that's the case, then just get to work, and
Yeah.
you will be surprised.
And you're not going to benefit from thinking if you don't have it, then what?
Yeah.
So you just give up? I mean, there's just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. Another myth is warm-ups.
Okay.
It's not warm-ups in general, but there's a thing that I just find very particular. I think things are best and motivation is there when you have a purpose, right? So what usually people call motivation is the why question, right? Why should I even do this? And this is a good question. Little kids are great at that. That's all they will ask the whole day. Why? Why? And it matters. It really matters. And it does also matter for exercises. And the end goal should be that you're having fun, that you have a certain freedom on the instrument, that you feel great while doing it. You share that with other people. You connect with other musicians. So that's what it's for, to play great music, to feel maybe more confident, to feel have less question marks in your head. That's just a wonderful feeling, to not think about your technique while playing, but to just be able to get it out and just play what you want to play. Now, that is already a goal, maybe vague. Maybe a sub-goal of that would be, I always feel like when I play a solo, it gets out of control and louder. So, control, dynamic control when we talk about louder and louder. So, maybe it's the motions that get bigger and bigger, and I just have to try to keep them down so it's not like I don't feel like a caveman in the end always, although I started very quiet maybe. And so that's great. Then we have a purpose. Then we can have search exercises for it that will actually get us pretty close, even after 15 minutes, to be like, okay, to get a feeling of like, this changes, this gets better. This is what we need, I think. What we don't need is people that have to create content every day. That is not bad per se, if it's good content, of course. But what came out of a lot of education on the internet is that people have to do something, not something that serves, not something that's has a purpose, or really is like, I want to help, something, anything.
Yeah.
And then a code word that gets used very often in online education is a warm-up. And it gets used like this. You come up with something completely ridiculous that you have to explain for whatever time you need as an online educator. Like, let it be 5 minutes, let it be 30 minutes, whatever it is. And you put it together bit by bit. You first play it way too fast so no one understands it. Then you put it together bit by bit to really explain it, because it's actually tough and blah, blah, blah. And if it sounds horrible, it doesn't groove, and no one knows what it's good for, then you go in for the punch and say, it's a great warm-up. And it's just something that drives me wild, where I think like, what the hell should this be good for? Why should I do that? Why should I, like, can you give me one reason? Yeah, it's a great warm-up. That's always the cop-out for something that's absolutely stupid and unnecessary. So a warm-up is a warm-up. A warm-up means to gently get your hands, to not make movements under stress and in big radiuses with cold muscles or tendons, right? To slowly get blood. And the best is this, actually, and for you listeners, is to just rub your forearms a little bit, because that way you can get blood into your muscles and joints without already moving them cold, which is a great warm-up for you kids out there.
You go.
So to then say like just something that has no purpose is a warm-up, that is a myth. Sorry for that rant, but I think...
I love it. Benny, what's on your playlist at the moment? What are you listening to?
I have so much to listen to in terms of my job. This morning I listened to Kraftwerk, a recording of a tour I was a guest at, in the audience, and I listened to it today to honor Florian Schneider, which... but I always listen to Contrast Program. I was now involved in the mixes for a festival we did in Moving Parts, which was pretty like energetic and loud. So when that is done, there will be some piano music next, or like it's usually then Contrast Program to whatever I have to work with, or so stuff like that. All kinds of stuff, really. Classical music, funk, yeah, all kinds.
Do you want to give a bit of a shout out to any drummers that maybe you'd like other people to become aware of that maybe aren't such household names?
Oh, wow. What a huge opportunity. And I'm absolutely unprepared. That's great. That's amazing. There is this guy in England called Joel Barford, a very tasteful, very young kid. I think I'm old enough to say kid. But he has wonderful hands, like very smooth, very, very wonderful technique, great touch, and is just a real great jazz player, like in more traditional or he can be. He also can do other stuff, but he can be like very traditional and way too traditional for his age. It's actually like, it baffles me. It's like, what the heck are you doing? Like, are you a time
You're
traveler?
not supposed to be that good.
Yeah. And so that's great. You can check him out on Instagram.
Could you give us was it Joel Barford?
Yeah, Joel with like Billy Joel, and then Barford. I think it's B-A-R, like Ford, the car. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great.
Joel will be happy about that.
I'm sure.
Greetings, Joel, if you hear this.
Well, Benny, I think we're coming to an end.
Oh.
And I'm really grateful for your time, man.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, man. I gotta say, I'm very jealous that you're in New Zealand.
Is that right?
Yeah, I love New Zealand. New Zealand is one of my absolute favorite countries. And I know that artists say that on tour all the time, but to prove that I'm not full of shit, I've been on tour, I think, in almost every country, nearly every country on the planet in the last kind of 25 years. And New Zealand was one of these things where I came on tour and then was like, oh. And I told people on stage, like, oh, I got to come back. And they were like, yeah, sure. And a half a year later, I came back and stayed for 3 months. I really spent a considerable amount of time there and have a lot of friends there. So,
do you mind me asking whereabouts you stayed? I'm not trying to stalk you and try and find out exactly where you stayed, but what area?
No, I did a mixture of like a toury route. I'd got a little rental bus and just like tried to get on both islands and to see this beach and this mountain and go a hike there. And so I just try to go everywhere. I have a couple of friends in Oakland and went fishing, and like it was just great. And I've been on tour there, I think last year or 2 years ago with Pete Lockett.
I saw you here on that tour. Yeah.
Oh yeah? Oh, you were there?
Yeah.
That's great.
At Auckland
awesome.
Girls Grammar in the big hall there.
Yeah, awesome. That's
yeah,
great.
I was there.
Cool. Wow, I want to come back as soon as possible, as soon as this craziness is over. And I mean, that's the other thing. I really appreciate traveling now more,
Oh yeah.
now that that we all can't. But anyway, I have to do my homework. I have to get this book finished, and and then we will talk again.
Thank you again. It's just a total honor.
Oh, big pleasure, man. You were very, very generous. And yeah, whenever you want to do this again, hit me up.
I'll hold you to that.
Great.
Awesome, my man. All right, Benny.
Thank you. Bye-bye.